Yeah.
So let's we're not the only ones that do this podcast thing. You do it as well, Eric. You've started. You did. I can't remember how many episodes in are you now. How long have you been doing the eye test?
I don't know. We started last fall.
Last fall. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, how did it get started? What was the whole reasoning behind it? What had you thinking, hey, I'd kind of like to podcast?
Well, I've been thinking about the idea for quite a while. And some of the people over at Herd At, we've been bouncing ideas around, trying to come up with the right idea, the right format, I didn't want to do just another podcast,
Right.
just another Husker podcast, right? What am I going to do different?
What's your niche?
Right. And I thought there was something there to talk a little bit about photography and maybe the way that I approach things, the way that I see the game and how I see things happen, which is a little bit different from the way, like, for instance, some of our writers see it.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon is, I think I've told him before, I think he's like the best statistical analysis guy and working it into stories that I've ever known. He's great at it. But it's also the reason that I love having discussions with Brandon about the football team, the season, how things are going, because he's looking at it from those statistics.
Mm.
And I'm looking at it from more of a, lack of a better term, from more of an eye test, right?
Mm.
Did it look like football? Did it look
Right.
like they knew what they're doing? Does it smell like football? Was the body language? How was the body language? Were they still competing? All of those things, those are the things that I notice all the time. And it's a little bit of a byproduct of who I am, but it's also largely a byproduct of the way I approach my job. I'm looking for body language because, I can't see what's in somebody's head in the moment, but I can certainly take a picture of your body language and get an idea of what might be in your head. And so those are the things that I'm always looking for. So that's why I like having those discussions. And while Brady and I were on the road a lot last year, spending a lot of time in hotel rooms together, we just kind of realized one night, as we had spent 2 hours talking about the football game that we had just covered, that I realized in the moment that, holy crap, if we had been recording this, it would have been a podcast. Why don't we just do this? And, I can work in some photography stuff and we can talk shop a little bit, because I think people also like a little bit of the behind the scenes and how we do our jobs.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks, great, you got to go to Michigan. You got to go to the big house. Well, the travel and the Ubers and the Airbnbs and the Ubers and the stadium and the 12-hour day, and then the 3 hours of sleep before we catch a 7 a.m. flight to come back home. Everybody else sat down on their couch and watched a game for 3 hours, and it's a 2.5 day deal for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So, we can talk a little bit of shop too, but, so yeah, that's how the eye test came about.
Well, I know, Scott, did you have something? I'm sorry. I didn't even need to step on you. I know you've talked about it before on the show. There's another podcast concept, perhaps other content.
Working on another concept. I've noticed I've started to analyze like the direction that I was taking with guests and questions and things that I was passionate about talking about in, raising good young men, and how do we coach them, and how do we make them better. And I started to kind of feel like maybe that was taking over and distracting from our original concept for the eye test. So we're working on possibly carving that little niche out into its own little podcast, where we're gonna talk about, it's still a work in progress, but basically I'm thinking we're going to talk a little bit about, kind of modern masculinity and how do we build better young men for this world. and allowing them to be who they are, no matter how they, some guys are your quote unquote traditional, your stereotypical guy, and some are not, but everybody should get to be who they are no matter what they are. But when we boil it down, I personally feel like this world, then the track we're going, without, I don't want to get into politics and all that, but this track we're on, that we really, really need good, strong young men for the future we're going into. And I think some of them are a little lost at the moment.
Oh yeah.
I think it's a great concept, and I'm already subscribed, even though it's not out yet. So as soon as you let me know that it's out, I will be subscribed, and it will be certainly in my rotation, because I think you're absolutely right.
Well, hopefully we can get it up, in the higher part of your rotation.
Yes.
I want to get lost in the 40s, because I feel like those probably never get listened to.
No, iTest is always one of the first things I listen to as soon as it drops. There's other stuff that gets cycled down, but when iTest drops it, that's one of the first things I listen to. So this will probably be the same thing. And Scott and I have been talking about a concept too of a different podcast that I've been talking about with a buddy of mine from church that I play golf with, and just take a recorder out with us, sit on a golf course under a tree after we've played a round of golf, smoke a cigar, talk about a little golf, and then just talk about a topic, just one,
whatever
about, hey, how do you deal with adversity? What is it that gets you through adversity? And then when the cigar's gone, we're done, and we shut it down. Just kind of a, I don't know. We've got kind of some weird names kind of going through our mind, something like staying the course, or, teeing off on life, teeing off on life or something. Just have some fun with it, and it wouldn't be weekly. It'd probably be like once a month when we'd have time.
That's the kind of one I think you can probably just do whenever you feel like doing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be, if you're not doing it for the purpose of monetization, and you're just doing it because you love it, then just do it whenever you feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
No, I like that idea of your podcast, because I think two things are true. That one, you did say that was true, which is, I think that, like you said, to avoid politics or anything, which is absurd that it can even be qualified or quantified as a political problem. But I think it's a reality problem, which is that, yes, there are young men in the world that feel completely lost because everything that they do is wrong.
Yes.
And
or they've been told that everything they do is wrong.
Yes. Their intrinsic nature is wrong.
Yes.
And not to say that there, like you just said, not to say that there isn't exceptions to that rule, because there definitely are. I would be one of those people. I'm not your typical traditional type of guy, but I definitely have my inclinations towards doing those things. But then the other thing that you said that complements that is that dudes consume podcasts almost as regularly as an alcoholic consumes beer. There's a reason why the Joe Rogan podcast is such a hit, and there's a reason why podcasts in general are such a hit, is because that's the type of media that men in generally like to consume. They don't have all the time in the world to just sit and read articles and read books. And
I can do two things: that I can mow the lawn and listen to a podcast.
Exactly.
You can do yard work and listen to a podcast. I can work on 1,000 photos and listen to a podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. My job, I do apartment maintenance, and in my truck, I'm listening to podcasts. And when the residents aren't there to have questions that need answered for whatever reason, and to just not be disrespectful, half the time I have a headphone in one of my ears and I'm listening to a podcast. I run out of podcasts to listen to because I'm just I'm an auditory learner. And I think a lot of men generally are, because men work trade jobs most of the time, and those jobs require a lot of verbal instruction. And so I think
men are probably a little more tactile learners as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I have to be able to put my hands on it and do it to learn it. I personally have never been much on book learning.
No.
Like whenever I got a new camera, I would have it in my hand for 3 hours before I cracked the damn book.
Yep.
Right.
What I did too.
I just open it up and start pressing buttons. What's this
Yep.
do? I don't know. What's this do?
Yep.
And then inevitably I open the book and go, oh man, that's really cool. I should be doing that. Because, it's whatever new feature there is, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I used to be, I'm a retired over the road truck driver, and that's all I did was 11 hours a day, 10, 11 hours a day
Oh
was
my God,
podcast.
that's just
So I never
custom
had that
built
long of a
for
playlist.
podcasting.
I never had that long of a playlist when I was driving, because I could listen to them all every day. And that's how this show started. Was I was in the sleeper of my truck doing my end of the conversation, and he was in his apartment there in Lincoln. So
That's
God bless
awesome.
technology. Yeah.
That is
StreamYard.
awesome.
We could talk on StreamYard, but we didn't. We were audio our first year, audio only. So I'd
Right.
record my audio.
Our first season was all audio too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in hindsight, I was like, man, we should have just started with video from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely added a different element for sure.
Don't want to bite off too much, that is the thing. It's like, I don't want to do everything all at once.
Jump out of the nest and learn how to fly on the way down.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like
there you go.
I've done that a lot in my life. I can't say it always worked out, but
hey, sometimes falling is probably the best learning.
It's a great motivator, isn't it?
It is. It's like, I don't want to do that again.
No doubt about it.
Nope, you will have a subscriber, my good sir. If you create that podcast as well, I will definitely subscribe and take a listen. So you have another guaranteed listener there, Bucko.
Well, good. We're up to 2.
We're up to 2.
There you go.
I believe you would have quite a few, to be honest with you. I think that's a good topic that a lot of people would listen to. Just in a sense that it's what the world needs,
Yeah.
I think God's hand would be on it, to be honest with you. So